So where does growing our future sit? How does it all fit together? And again, we wanted to create a plan that didn't sort of abstractly float around in the ether. We wanted it all to really fit together with the organisation that we are. And so it all links together. People, nature and economy is still the organisation that we are. It's the triple bottom line that Forestry England is. That has not changed. And some of you will recognise this compass diagram. We've seen it before. It's a really helpful summary. You'll find it on Roots. Growing the Future aims to really focus and build on the purpose, which remains at the centre of what we do. Our long-term objectives that we set when we became Forestry England: growing superb forests, being an outstanding organisation, being financially sustainable, increasing our natural capital, telling our story. 5-year plan and growing our future, it really gives us a bridge between those long-term objectives and how we move forwards in the next 5 years towards those. Next slide, please, there. So the plan has themes, but you'll see that there is a golden thread, and sustainable forestry is it. Sustainable, productive forestry, it runs through everything we do. It's embedded into all parts of growing the future. Our internationally accredited sustainable forest and land management is central to delivering the benefits we're striving to achieve for climate, for wildlife and people. It's referenced across the whole of the plan. It's the key that unlocks all of the benefits that we deliver. It's absolutely our USP. Next slide, please. So we're getting into the core themes of how we've arranged the plan. Our plan for wildlife. So you see the vision there up on the screen. So we really want to build on our successes. The rich, diverse and connected habitats in the nation's forests will continue to be improved and enhanced by our sustainable forest and land management. Our priorities for wildlife include at least 6,000 hectares of wild areas established, improved condition of sites of special scientific interest, ancient woodlands, open habitats and wetlands, and more species introductions. Next slide, please, Dale. Our plan for people. And this is really exciting to state this so confidently. The nation's forests are among the most popular natural spaces in the country. They are visited millions of times every year. We are great at bringing people and forests together, but we want to go even further. We want to break down barriers, reach across society so everyone feels welcome in these shared public spaces. We want to be able to talk about how great we are at doing that. Over the next 5 years, our priorities for people include ensuring everyone sees the nation's forests as a place for them. We have got a really ambitious target of 1 million hours of volunteer time given to the nation's forest. Next slide, please, Dale. Our plan for climate. So some of our priorities: at least 2,000 hectares of high quality new woodlands planted, more diversity in tree species and forest structures, investment in research to support further forest resilience. And you see our vision up on the screen there. So of course, Forestry England isn't going to solve climate change on its own, but what we're saying is we've got a contribution to make. We've got something to say about this. We've got expertise and things that we can do and really make happen in Forestry England that are really special and interesting. And the 5-year plan really captures that sense of ambition. Exciting stuff. Next slide, please. Our people and values. So this is all part of our long-term objectives, outstanding organisation. So of course, we can only achieve our ambitions by investing in you and by being an outstanding organisation. It is your expertise, your professionalism and passion that makes this plan happen. And we will invest in skills, expertise and leadership. And of course, we're still operating in civil service pay restraints. That is still our reality, but we'll find other ways to help ensure that our organisation has staff that are engaged in our work and in your work and support you to have successful, fulfilling careers. And over the next 5 years, we're ambitious to evolve how we work, to invest in our digital infrastructure, our information data, and build and secure an impressive health and safety culture, improve work-life balance, support flexible working. It's also a priority for us to diversify our workforce to ensure Forestry England really represents the people we serve. Next slide, please, Dale. Our sustainable approach. So being a sustainable organisation is ensuring both our environmental and our financial sustainability. So it's about being committed to evolving our business and organisation to become carbon lean and climate friendly across our forest operations, our landscape management decisions and our corporate activity. We're proud that while delivering on our social purpose and responsibilities as a public sector organisation, actually around 80% of the funding that supports our work comes from our trading activity, the majority of which comes from timber sales and recreation income. With more diverse, robust and long-term income streams, our finances will be more sustainable, and therefore our forests and everything they provide will be more sustainable too. We're working with new partners to tell our story, gain financial support and plant new trees. Next slide, please, Dale. So, of course, launching the plan is really only day one of when the real work begins. So it's been fantastic to have had these hundreds of conversations across the organisation to capture a plan that feels so outward facing. But of course, we don't have all of the answers. We've got this core business that we're talking about. We've captured this stretch and ambition. It looks and feels relevant to the world out there to understand the importance of the fantastic work that we do in our organisation and how we've framed it. But how are we going to make it all happen? This states our priorities, but it doesn't pay for them. So we're working on the 3 sections that are going to really help to make it happen, around how we develop our business plans, our team plans, our individual work plans, how we measure the progress we're making, and how we communicate and champion that work. So next slide, please, Dale. So delivering our ambition. So the targets in growing the future, they're deliberately high level, but they'll be translated through detailed action plans through our business planning processes. That's where the real resourcing work goes. This sets our priorities. They've come up through the business. This is what we're saying is important. And now the job comes to resource that through our business planning work. And each business unit, each forest district, each function will see their response to the plan's targets in varied ways, plan their actions, suit their local priorities, while being guided by the overall objectives in growing our future. Next slide, please. Showing our impact. So we already measure and track so much of the amazing work we do. The 5-year plan is really going to help us bring all of this powerful data together and tell the story of its impact. We all know there are challenges in measuring, and undoubtedly there are going to be gaps that we've got. We want to see where those gaps are and look at how we can address them to get a better picture of the impact that we're making. And that's going to inform where we are now, our baselines, and really help take us beyond the next 5 years. And telling the story of our progress. We're already engaging with internal comms and external comms to bring this plan to life. The aim is for everyone to understand how they contribute, how we make this plan, how we make the progress and the impact that we're seeing in the plan. We want to see these achievements really brought to life through blogs, videos, presentations. We want the expertise that it takes to make this stuff happen really coming to life. This plan is a really exciting move for Forestry England. It really reinforces our commitment and mission to connect everyone with the nation's forests and to continue to evolve them and grow and thrive to benefit people, nature and the economy. And we all have a part to play in making sure Forestry England can make a difference. I haven't seen questions coming through. If you've got questions, come on, stick them in the chat function. I'm going to add some links into the chat so you can see some of the launch comms. There's some lovely videos and things that colleagues have put some lovely bits of effort in, so do check those out. Kevin, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, PK, for that. Good morning, everyone. I'll just get my slides up. Hopefully it will work seamlessly. And away we go. Thank you, PK. Growing the Future is our 5-year plan, a restatement, a refocus, a refresh on what we do, building on the success of the last 100 years of our organisation. I've been asked just to put a few slides together to make it real, show how this links with the districts, with the forests, with the trees, with you out there across England. But first, why is that not working? Oh, it is now. Growing our future, how does that link to the forest then? Got a bit of delay on my button this morning. This is going to be fun. The Forest District Strategic Plan, most districts will have a strategic plan. The strategic plan in the districts links to, it is informed by the strategy as set out in Growing Our Future. In West, we've got an implementation plan that sets out the priorities for the coming year, still under development for those in the West who haven't seen it yet, but that sets out our priorities for the coming year, linked from the strategic plan, which is a 5-year plan. You all know about the forest plans and the forest centre plans. These are very much your aspirations out there in the across the country, and they're captured in the local plans, which in themselves are informed by the strategic plan and Growing Our Future. The business plan. The business plan is the difficult one. It allocates limited resources. It's the reality check. We can't do everything everywhere because we do not have enough people and we do not have enough money, which means we do not have enough time. So it's the business plan sets out how much we can afford to do. And then, of course, the forward job plans, you either love them or hate them, but they are the important document that bridges the gap and sets and links all of these plans together, because without you having a clarity in your forward job plan that pulls forward from the strategic plan, the programs in the forest plans, and what we can afford to do in the business plans, we won't have the collected delivery of the Growing Our Future. I do come back to that iterative circle in the middle there between the implementation plan for the strategy, the forest centre and forest plans which dictate or put forward the programs and the business plan, because there will be and always be an annual juggle as we go round prioritising what we can afford to do against our approved plans. So what does this mean in practice? Well, we will build on our success. This is what the 5-year plan, the Growing Our Future, says for wildlife. The nation's forests provide the most valuable places for wildlife to thrive and expand in England. You can picture our huge estate across the country as the backbone, the stronghold for nature. Our work over the last 100 years has grown that stronghold, and through Growing Our Future, we'll focus on making that even better so that wildlife can thrive even in the face of climate change. We will build on success and we will grow for the future. Why am I so confident we can do that? Because we already are. Every district, every beat, every forest will have examples. This is Alan, wildlife ranger in the Marches, and he's been working on that same patch for many, many years. He's been thinking, he's been observing, he's been doing to create and maintain a fantastic resource for butterflies. So acting now means protecting and improving wide networks for butterflies in Mortimer Forest, thinking, observing, doing. One example of what we've been doing for wildlife for many, many, many years, and will do more of under this plan. Tree pipets, adders, Forestry Commission staff, Forestry England staff and volunteers on an adder monitoring survey monitoring training day. Can't quite see them, but the little specks in the background are youngsters getting training in surveying for great crested newts in the Forest of Dean. So acting now means surveying and training surveyors, in this case for reptiles and amphibians in the Forest of Dean and Haldon Forest, so we can monitor whether our interventions are supporting threatened species to thrive into the future. Again, an example of what we're doing now, what you're doing across the country, which gives us confidence that we will grow the future and we will do what's right for wildlife to help them thrive in the face of a changing climate. I can't do a presentation from here in the Forest of Dean without mentioning sheep. So 2 pictures of sheep. Wildlife Trust and cows. What's that got to do with us? Well, acting now means working in partnership to benefit from other people's times, expertise, and tap into external funding streams. Both PK and I have mentioned the business planning process. We can only afford to do so much, but we can afford to do so much more if we work in partnership with others, tapping into their expertise and tapping into external sources of funding. An example of that, which again is replicated in most forest districts, if not all forest districts, are the conservation grazing schemes. Here in the Dean, we're working with Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust. They own the cattle. They're doing all the work on the cattle monitoring, on the ecological monitoring, and they're benefiting from funding through the National Lottery and through stewardship funding to do that, which allows large areas of our forest to be managed for the benefit of wildlife without costing us as much money as it would otherwise do. Again, examples replicated across the country. Very misty day. It's always misty down on Bodmin Moor in Cornwall, but a very misty day. On a Sitka spruce clearfell site, there's Aaron, assistant ecologist down there, surveying, looking across what was a Sitka spruce forest and is now a very wet area, because acting now means restoring peat bogs. This is David Stowe on Bodmin Moor. As I say, once a Sitka spruce, well, 2 years ago, Sitka spruce forest, 50, 60 years ago, a bog, which we drained or partly drained to plant Sitka on, and now we're returning back to peatland. Jumping ahead here, I won't try and go back. I will just get rid of that one for the moment. For wildlife and climate, this is the Great Hoff Brook in the Forest of Dean. Like many of our stream channels across the country, this has been heavily canalised, straightened. So when it rains, the water just gushes through. Very poor for ecology because anything living there just gets washed out every time it rains. Silt pollution washing straight down into the River Wye. A problem for us because the photo on the right shows that stream disappearing into a tiny culvert that goes under the village. And you can imagine that when it rains heavily, the village floods. And so it does. So with a lot of still going backwards. I will master Teams one of these days, but obviously not today. So with a lot of engineering, a lot of inspections, ingenuity by the engineers to get grills, we can help beavers return. And so the beavers are then damming that stream and creating fantastic habitats for wildlife, but equally protecting communities from flooding. So acting now means beavers creating habitats naturally. And I'm sure we will see hundreds more beaver projects over the next 5 years, or hundreds more beavers on the estate over the next 5 years under the Growing Our Future plan, because they're just fantastic wildlife engineers. So for people, The nation's forests are a living treasure, deeply connected to people's lives and improving health and well-being. We know that, and we've been delivering for people for decades. We will build on that success. We will continue to provide first-class outdoor experiences in the nation's forests, and we will grow the future with a particular focus on increasing the diversity of visitors to the estate. So for people, Michael Gove, Secretary of State, or he was Secretary of State for Forestry, has now moved into another role. Mark Harper, local MP, and 2 parish councillors. What have they got to do with us? Well, acting now means telling our story, making richer connections with politicians and parish councillors. The parish councillors down there on Fernworthy Forest got a particular interest because every ton of timber from Fernworthy Forest has to come through the tiny market town, and it's sometimes difficult to get your forestry van through that tiny market town, let alone a 44-ton lorry. So the parish council, very useful to keep them informed of what we're doing and on board. So when there's problems in the villages, in the town, things are that much easier to sort out and smooth ruffle feathers and get the timber flowing again. So acting now means telling our story. For people, this is Nicky Morgan, community ranger down in Lee Woods on the edge of Bristol, sorted this one out. This was an outreach trying to understand why special needs groups weren't using the forest. So Nicky arranged a mobile loo facility, especially for the disabled groups. And that single piece of outreach has facilitated that group visiting the forest on a more regular basis. But in the Forest Dean, we've also committed to make all of our waymarked trails, walking trails, tramper friendly. And these last 2 photos is an outreach project we did to make contact with local schools. And this is a tour of forestry sites by, in this case, primary school teachers, so that we could show them what educational resources, what learning resources we had available that they could tap into, which at that time they weren't tapping into. So acting now means identifying the cultural and physical barriers to accessing the nation's forests, reaching out to special needs groups and to teachers in these examples. We know we can do it. We know we can grow the future because we already are. So for people, different cyclists here, different types of bikes. But acting now for people means offering something for everyone. Thinking through who our current audiences are. Thinking through who our current audiences are and working out who we're not getting out onto the forest and making that special effort to encourage them to come out and understand what those barriers are. So for climate change is real, it's happening. Our biggest opportunity, our biggest contribution is going to be producing high quality timber and absorbing carbon emissions. We will build on its success. We are world class. It was many, many years ago that we got the Worldwide Fund for Nature, or the Worldwide Fund for Nature gave us a gift to the earth because we were the first organisation in the world to have the nation's forest estate certified under the FSC branding. That makes us world class. We continue to maintain that certification. So confident that we will be world class going forward because we are now. We will create new woodlands. We will expand the nation's forest and we will absorb more carbon. Just thought with these 2 photos, take you back to 2019, pre-COVID, if you can remember that far, to our Centenary Avenue and down in Eggersford, and just show you that the trees are still growing. Quite deliberately, tulip trees growing there, as our contribution towards resilience and diversifying species. This is Lorne and Clive up in the Welsh Marches talking to a contractor, but this scene will be repeated across the country as our professional foresters are passionate about and extremely knowledgeable about understanding what trees to plant where, what quality trees look like, in this case supplied through our excellent nurseries. They were very impressed by the quality of these trees going into that ground. That's our investment for the next 100 years. Also trialing new species, watching, observing what's growing well, what's not growing well. Because for climate, acting now means planting the right tree in the right place for the right reason, maintaining world-class forest management practices to ensure our woods and forests are thriving in another 100 years. So people, yes, our vision. Our vision. We are one Forestry England. We support each other to work to our values and to be healthy, motivated, engaged experts. We will be a diverse workforce representing the people we serve. You can't see it particularly well, but I put this photo in. This is from April 2019. It's the West England team on the first day of being Forestry England. And we will be Forestry England for many, many years to come as we grow our future. We are Forestry England. There we go. It's working now. We are Forestry England. We are the country's largest land manager, caring for the nation's forests for people, nature, and the economy. You are the foundation of our organisation. We grow nothing without you. We won't grow the future without you. Together we will grow another 100 years of fantastic timber, fantastic forests. So thank you. And with that, I think we can go back to questions. Hope I've left enough time at the end.
Thank you very much, PK and Kevin, for your presentation. Yep, we do have time for questions. There are a couple of questions in the chat, but please do feel free to ask any more questions in the chat. So we'll start with our first question, which is from Stuart Burgess. So he says, some of the 5-year activities are new or larger programmes of previous work. Is it important to plan those well, and what can't happen as a result? So what's the approach for those things alongside business as usual?
Shall I take that one, PK?
Sure.
I think the key here is prioritisation and this linking between the strategic plan, the forest centre and the forest plans and the business plan. Because no, we can't do everything everywhere. We need to prioritise. We need to prioritise legal compliance, delivering FSC, growing our future, probably in that order, because you can't grow the future if you're not legally compliant. So from the ground upwards, there is a pecking order. It starts with legal compliance, delivering FSC, growing our future. But the exact prioritization is going to depend on where you are, what you're doing, which woodland you're talking about, because it will be different in different places. Each location, each forest can deliver its own set of, its own unique set of outputs that will differ. And collectively, that will deliver the national aspiration, the national programme.
Thank you, Kevin. There's another question here, which I think has been answered in the chat, so I shall read out both and then put it back to you. It's from Jonathan Norris. It's the 6,000 hectares of wild area that you referenced earlier. Could you please define what wild is and give an idea of the size these would be, e.g. minimum size of 0.25 hectares, 10, 100? Thanks. And then I think we had a message in response to that from Andrew Stringer. He said, hi all, on wild areas, please attend the biodiversity session, which is going to be running today at 10, where he gives an introduction to our evolving approach to wild areas, and there should be time for questions then. But in brief, it's not stepping back and doing nothing, but actively intervening to restore natural processes. We're aiming for these to be large, in the hundreds of hectares, and hopefully see you at 10 if you're interested in that topic. Did anybody want to add anything on that, PK, Kevin or Mike, or does that cover the answer?
I'll just say in addition to the core wild areas, the big areas, there's always going to be a continuum across our woods and forests, because from the small patches of ride network, woodland tree edges, it all filters in. There's no hard and fast boundary for wildlife, and we shouldn't think about wild areas in the context of putting boundaries in place, but actually freeing up the processes for wildlife to thrive everywhere on our estate.
Thanks, Kevin. And Dale, I'd just add, it's a really good question from Jonathan, and I would encourage everybody to go to the 10 o'clock session, because I think you will be your mind will be blown by what Andrew will tell you in terms of kind of what we're trying to do for biodiversity around the estate. But effectively, I'm really proud of the fact that Forestry England is a leader in this space already. I mean, we've been doing wild Ennerdale for donkey's years now up in Cumbria. It's a massive kind of valley site, river valley site, which was coniferized back in the sort of 30s, 40s, 50s, and we've been restoring it to more naturalistic processes. There's still a lot of kind of productive conifer in that space, but we've got cattle grazing underneath it. We've got meanders back in rivers. The whole process is becoming a much more naturalistic landscape, and we're doing that in partnership with others. And I think that's the other key thing with many of these kind of big landscape scale kind of the wild areas that we aspire to do. It's also thinking about the land that is adjacent to us beyond our boundaries and working with our partners. And I know a number of district teams are sort of looking at this. I'm aware of examples in Yorkshire, at Newtondale, we're up in Kielder, possibilities of some of the farms coming back in hand up in Kielder, and how can that create a wilder landscape in those sort of spaces. And so there's a lot of this. Really proud of what we're doing in this space already, but I don't want to steal any more of Andrew's thunder.
Thank you, Mike. Another question here from Dave Miller. How would you mitigate the potential damage and disturbance to wildlife and the forest environment caused by increased visitor numbers?
Shall I say a bit about this? I think it's really important that we, it's a really good question, it's a really important question. And I think it's really critical to keep hold of the fact that this is an organisation for land management experts, and we have a balancing duty, and we're not letting go of that. Just because we want to encourage more people to know about Forestry England, and we want to look at more people to reflect a more diverse visitors to be coming to Forestry England. That doesn't mean we want everyone in all parts of the estate being tramped all over. That's not what we're saying. There are different parts of the estate that can take more visitors, and districts are looking at that, aren't they? Where actually visitor centres can be balanced out so that the parts of the districts that are actually could take more visitors, they could be used more effectively, parts of it, so that there is less stress on forests, and where actually the priority is biodiversity and wildlife, actually those are still protected, and that should still absolutely be our way of managing our forests with expertise and a balancing duty in mind, and that remains the case. I don't think that that will change any time, any decade soon.
Thanks, PK. We've got time for one more question. There's a question here from Pete O'Rourke. It's for Kevin. You mentioned the wildlife officer in the Marches who has been in the beat for a long time and has helped to develop habitat for butterflies as a result of his local knowledge. How do we offer staff incentives to remain in post for the longer term to ensure that vital knowledge is gained and used to benefit us all? I feel there is often a high turnover of staff, usually 3 to 4 years in certain roles.
I think that's a very interesting question. And as an organisation, we do have a lot of staff that stay in the same role for many years because of the passion they develop for their home locations. But I also think, whilst that's great, we should also welcome and embrace new talent, new experience, new ideas coming in from outside. Mike probably might want to say something more about Offer 2020 and where that's got to, because again, I think that in terms of being an outstanding organisation, our aspirations there feed into that answer.
Thanks, Kevin, and Pete, thanks for your question. I mean, I think a bit like Kevin, I think there is a kind of the pros and cons to both sides, as Kevin describes. I mean, I think we really value it when people stay, and you're obviously implying that in your question. Same time, bringing new people in, getting a bit of change can actually kind of freshen things up and create new ideas, new innovation. So we need a bit of both. I think there are parts of the country in certain roles where we're seeing higher levels of turnover than others, and I think that is a key consideration. And I think we are trying to think about that through things like succession planning in teams, also budgets. And on to Kevin's point, I wish I could give you some sort of really positive news on Offer 2020. I can't today because we're still before Ian Gamble's left, the case went into DEFRA, and we haven't actually got a definitive answer out of DEFRA at this point. So I can't kind of give you a clear answer on that, but certainly what we would aspire to do is enable people to take career choices in a way, and some people will choose to stay in some places, and that's great, and fulfill, generate knowledge and understanding and put down roots, and other people will choose to progress a more mobile career, sometimes within our organisation, perhaps moving to forest services or elsewhere, and equally I think we have to welcome that. I think we've got to accept the fact there will be some turnover. I don't think we can hold people forever in certain spaces anymore. I don't think that's how the job market works, but we definitely need to make sure we've got succession plans and we have enough continuity of knowledge, and I think that is the key point, Pete, here, which is how do we achieve that in the organisation? And that's an active conversation at the moment, particularly thinking about the demand for or the challenge of recruitment for certain roles, whether it's foresters, land agents, engineers. They're some of the ones that are quite challenging at the moment.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for attending this session. We've just come to the end of our time now. So would you like to join me in thanking Kevin, PK and Mike for a really interesting presentation and questions. The next session is going to be at 10 o'clock, and it's on our biodiversity strategy with Andrew Stringer. If you want to join us, you can follow the links that you were sent in your meeting invites, or the links are all available for the meetings on the Roots homepage as a news story. Okay, thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.